Hi, everybody. Welcome back to WorkTech. I'm George LaRocque, and this is the next session in our Greenhouse Open interview series. Greenhouse Open is taking place on May 24th and 25th at the Javits Center in New York City. All the details are in the notes or in the article, depending on where you're viewing this interview. You can click and firm up your seat, save your spot at the event. But what we're doing here is highlighting a few of the key greenhouse partners that are participating in the Improve Your Tech Stack track, which I'll be hosting at Greenhouse Open. I'm excited about the track. I'm excited about this event. It's one of my favorite events to attend. And today we've got Teddy Chestnut from brighthire, the leading interview intelligence platform. Teddy, why don't you say hello and do a quick intro of yourself and brighthire?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, George, for having us on. Excited for the conference. I'm Teddy. I'm one of the co-founders of brighthire. A long time in the HR tech space at LinkedIn for 6.5 years. Before brighthire, started as an HR analyst for the corporate executive board. I'm the son of 2 HR professionals of 30 years each. So I guess Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But yeah, love the people space, the tech space. Been building brighthire for the last 3 years and really excited to showcase what we've been doing up on stage in a couple of weeks.
All right. So you've got like HR DNA going on here. That it's like genetic at this point. So
I was literally talking yesterday with my dad about how he used to fly up to Cornell on a small plane to go recruit for mechanical engineers. Like it goes way, way back.
Okay. All right. And I'm extra excited today because we have a chance to meet one of your customers. Hannah, if you would introduce yourself for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Teddy, I did not know that about you.
Oh, yeah.
I come from a family of HR. So hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Spellmeyer. I have the honor of being one of, if not the first customer of brighthire. And I used brighthire and led a high growth recruiting team in the B2B SaaS space for a cryptocurrency vendor. So I've been using brighthire since it was in beta stage and continue to find new use cases and new connections in their community of talent advisors that just make recruiting better and better and better. And I can't wait to chat with Teddy at Greenhouse about how we're using it and all of the exciting ththings that are coming up next.
That's great. I'm looking forward to the session as well. And, this emerging category of intelligence, right? We used to talk about analytics, but this is something much more and very different. Teddy, could you talk about brighthire and, what's the problem that you're solving and maybe a little bit about what the product does?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with our mission, which is to give everyone the hiring experience they deserve. And the problem in realizing that mission today is that hiring is a set of conversations, and those conversations for the most part happen and then disappear. We have no visibility into how interviews are actually run. So it's really hard to make confident, fair, fast hiring decisions to deliver great experience when you have scatter notes, memories, and games of telephone as the foundation for those decisions. It's like unlike any other part of business. And Hannah will talk a lot about this, I think, with respect to her team. It's really difficult to continuously improve something that you can't see. And so brighthire solves that problem by syncing to Greenhouse and Zoom and Google Meet, the tools that teams already use to capture those conversations, make the highlights reviewable and shareable, and ultimately analyzable so that we can have real intelligence about what's going on in arguably the most important conversations that get run in the business, full stop. And we've seen a lot of use cases come out of that: recruiter enablement and training, interviewer training, better decision making, a real awareness about how we run interviews and maybe how we run them differently with different groups of candidates. So there's a lot of use cases that come out of that, but fundamentally, it's about unlocking what previously was a black box. What happens in an interview? Knowing that can be really powerful in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Hannah, as a customer, how do you see that fitting into your workflow and your tech stack? In your shop?
Sure. So it is really went from being a nice to have to something that we relied on pretty heavily, simply because it unlocked information that we never had access before. access to, what we would do is sort of guess at what was going wrong, why hiring manager pass-through rates were low, or why one recruiter had better close rates than another recruiter. And unless you were standing next to somebody old school, kind of muting the phone so that you could coach them in real time what to do, or three-way calling someone for an interview, you have no idea your recruiter's strengths or weaknesses or hiring manager issues or other interviewer issues. And so what BrightHire did and does for us is give us visibility into that, not so that, you know, we could be big brother or micromanage, but so that we can truly identify great interviewers, places where we have a need for improvement. And that information was either incredibly arduous to get previously, or we just didn't get it. And we sort of, you know, threw a dart and hope we landed on the right problem that we were trying to solve. So it's been really crucial for us.
Wow, that's a ringing endorsement. And I think it's interesting, as I went through some of the material, I haven't seen the product, but I did notice that there's an aspect of candidate experience, and there's also that aspect of hiring team experience. You know, Hannah, you mentioned coaching and identifying, you know, how interviews are going and who's a better, the sort of spectrum of performance. Is that, how do I experience the platform, I guess, as a candidate or as someone on the hiring team? Is it video? Is it text? How does that appear to me as a user?
Teddy, I'll start and then you jump in. So from a candidate perspective, it's really slick. And what we found is candidates have the opportunity to opt in or opt out. It's an active decision. Very few of them opt out, to be quite frank. And what you find is that when you're interviewing, instead of having an interview with someone and you can hear them typing in the background as they desperately try to transcribe what you're saying, we have a conversation like this, and I'm listening, and I'm able to think about what comes next or dive a little deeper and not, you know, just frantically try to record everything you're saying. So from a candidate experience, it's actually better and more consistent as well, because there's a heads up display that allows you to adhere to whatever structured interview plan has been set up as well. So it's fairer, and I don't know, you don't feel like you're talking to a court reporter, as most recruiters could double ask in another life.
Yeah, I've been there. It's been a ways, but the feverish typing brings back some nightmares. And Teddy, how have you? I mean, there's an obvious improvement on both sides when that interruption isn't happening. But how does that get rolled up for Hannah? Like, how does the platform roll up that data and give Hannah the insights that she needs as a leader? What have you done there?
Yeah, so again, like, give everyone the hiring experience they deserve. So candidates, interviewers, hiring managers, and ultimately somebody like Hannah, who's architecting that entire experience across the board. When you capture all of the conversations that your team is having, now you can start to spot trends, patterns. You can understand, hey, something is off in my greenhouse instance, right? Like a pass-through rate is low, or this role has taken a really long time to fill. Again, today it's an investigative, set of work of having conversations and guesstimating, and now I'm giving Hannah the ability to go, search all of the conversations that have been run for that particular role, or this particular interviewer who maybe has a lower pass-through rate. What's going on? Like, what can we learn from that? And it's just empowering her to come to the conversation with a functional stakeholder, right? With a sales leader, with an engineering leader, with now real data about what's happening in their part of the hiring process, really putting somebody like her on equal playing field with that functional leader to really influence how hiring is done. So there's intelligence that we're pulling out of every conversation surfacing up, and there's a huge, really actually exciting roadmap for what we're going to be able to deliver kind of in the coming months.
Cool. Well, I'm not going to dig in on the roadmap because I'll geek out on that. I'll take all the time. So maybe I'll catch you at open and we'll have a side conversation. But I'm going to also hold on getting into the greenhouse integration because, Hannah, you've told us about your company. Teddy, what do your other customers look like? What's the profile of a BrightHire customer?
Yeah, they look like Canva or Miro or Envision or SalesLoft. fast growing, primarily tech companies that, need to get hiring right, that care about ensuring their process is fair and equitable, and need to move fast. And, all of whom have, adapted over the last few years to like a remote first, hiring workflow. So that's become like, part and parcel of the way that they work. Many companies don't seem like they're going back, but that was really conducive to BrightHire growing really fast for sure. But yeah, it's those kinds of companies and talent, acquisition leaders who really want to take control of, their ability to influence the most important conversations that drive their team's outcomes.
Okay. And, I think back to Greenhouse, right? I think that maps to a lot of the growth that Greenhouse has seen. And now you talked about pass-through rates. You talked about that integration. What does that look like? What for a Greenhouse customer, if I go with BrightHire, how much work is it to get live, or what's the lift on that?
Hannah, you tell me. I mean, I'll tell it, but you say, like, in terms of the the lift, the API integration, the way that we've synced up for your admins or your rec ops team or your interviewers themselves.
It's pretty seamless, right? It's like any other API platform. I think entire rollout takes probably, 6 to 8 weeks if you start with pilot, then a group of super users, and then rolling it out to your full company. And when it comes to Greenhouse specifically, BrightHire can exist on its own, right? You can log into the BrightHire website and get everything you need and see the full analytics. But what was helpful for my team is that you can also use the BrightHire plugin for Chrome on top of your scorecard. So you're filling out your scorecard if that's your source of truth. And in the margin, you have the video of the interview, the transcript, you're going through the questions, and you might think like, I can't remember, I've done 8 interviews today, like my cognitive load is just through the roof. Without even toggling between tabs or windows, you can very easily access that. And again, create more objective, fair scorecards, which is pretty incredible. But from a technical implementation standpoint, it's a no-brainer, pretty easy.
Yeah, one thing we've thought a lot about are the multiple user personas and just making their lives super simple. So for the admin or somebody on the rec ops team, the way that you schedule interviews through Greenhouse, right, doesn't change at all. The way that you use Zoom doesn't change at all. The way that you set up role-based access controls, syncs to Greenhouse. Like there's a million different like little points of integration that we've been really thoughtful about to ensure that it doesn't create additional work. It doesn't feel like another system. It actually just embeds directly into your existing flow of work. And so, if the question is like, what does the integration look like? In many cases, it just looks invisible. Like it doesn't even realize I'm an interviewer and I just show up to my Zoom interview and BrightHire's there. Right. Or I go to my scorecard to fill it out and I have all the context right at my fingertips. So really all about meeting, users where the work gets done.
And the tool is only as valuable as the adoption, right? So I've told Teddy and Ben Sesser, the other co-founder, this before. One of the things that I consider before bringing on new technology is how hard is it to implement and how hard is it to train on? Because my team isn't going to do it if it takes time away from their day, away from their interviews, away from, an already really crowded calendar. It could be the best product in the world, but if I need 6 training sessions to do it, it's going to get lower on my priority list. So the great thing about BrightHire, as Teddy was alluding to, is it just launches. And recruiting ops is kind of the point person for that. They control, at least for us, role-based access, integrations, making sure that everything talks to each other. But from an interviewer, candidate, hiring manager perspective, you just do what you've always done, and then reap the benefits on the back end. So that was really important to us. And Teddy, you guys have done a great job at making that easy.
Oh, that's great. And now you've got a session coming up at Open, and I could keep grilling you on what it looks like and what does it do, but I imagine we'll get at some of that in your session. What's your session going to be about? What can we expect to learn?
Yeah, so we're talking about recruiter training. George, you and I, before this started, we're talking about what a wild market it is for recruiters and TA leaders. Never before have we seen this. So most TA leaders are thinking, how can I hire the best people? How can I keep them? And how can I make them better based on who's on my team? So the session we'll be going through is, how do you choose recruiting topics? How does that affect your hiring strategy for your talent acquisition team? How do you keep people engaged, right? Because when I get a notification that like I have a security training, I'm not clicking on it right away. So for recruiting training, like how do you make it interesting and fun and valuable so that your current team feels like they're getting career development and they're investing in themselves, but you're also able to increase your talent pool that you're sourcing from for the recruiters on your team, and then get them up to skill as fast as you can. So we'll go through a couple of components of that, and like we've been teasing, there's a demo at the end that's going to be pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, one thing that I'm really excited, just building on the themes that Hannah talked about, is a lot. She mentioned we've got this kind of community of talent acquisition leaders that share best practices and get together on a regular basis. And the idea of recruiter enablement really being formalized as a discipline, as like a practice, as something that we can codify. You think about other functions like sales enablement. If you Google sales enablement, you're going to get thousands of results and books and methodologies and courses and training and experts all on like what is sales, great sales look like. And we don't have that in recruiting, and we should. It's a lot of the same skills, and the impact on the business is arguably, 10 to 100 times like running a great sales call versus hiring a great salesperson, right? The lift that you get is massive.
Mm-hmm.
How do you dig for motivations? How do you handle objections? How do you close effectively? How do you pre-close? How do you assess? It deserves a level of rigor and focus that it hasn't gone today. And so like, I'm just really excited to be part of the journey of like establishing recruiter enablement as like a real awesome discipline, and the work that Hannah's done and a lot of the folks on BrightHire have done around that has been really, really exciting.
Teddy, you're hyping me up right now. I'm like,
I mean, I get pumped about this stuff. I think because look, you talk about this. It's transformative for people's careers, right? To come into a role, you imagine like a source or a coordinator who steps into a recruiting role for the first time and all of a sudden is screening for a staff level engineer. They're more nervous than that engineer is in that first screen,
right,
like by far.
And Teddy, you probably remember this. So I had a recruiting coordinator on my team who was interested in being a recruiter, and she was amazing, and we wanted to foster that development. And this was right when we first started using BrightHire. And so the first few calls, we did the traditional three-way dial, and it was so awkward because I'm like breathing in the background, and poor Dylan at the time was like trying to run this call, and your boss is on the call and you're nervous. And what BrightHire did was allow her to have these calls, be confident in them, and then share them back with me and say, hey, I think I did a really good job on this one. Will you listen to it? Or, hey, like I really bombed this. Take a look, like what could I have done differently? And it was so much easier than me booking 30 minutes every time she had a call, or her feeling the pressure of your manager breathing down your neck as you try to learn how to interview folks. So that was one of our first use cases, Teddy, and Dylan and I still talk about that actually.
There's such an analogy to that. You talked about the sales and marketing world. There are so many tools that help people get better and help managers get insight into how to move the team forward. I didn't make that connection coming in, but hearing you, I'm excited for your session. I'm ready. So let's
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, there you go. Everybody else that's interested, that's watching, I know that the event is taking place on the 24th and 25th in New York City at the Javits Center. I know there's some virtual components. I'm not sure which sessions are virtual, if all. So my recommendation is reserve a seat and get there, and you'll find out quickly why it's one of my favorite events. I'm not a big fan of the Javits Center, but I love the Javits Center when open is taking place. And anybody who's been to the Javits knows that I'm not just making a joke there. So the 24th and 25th in New York City, the links are here. If anyone wants to find out more about BrightHire between now and then, what's the best way to do that, Teddy?
brighthire.com.
Okay. Perfect. And Chainalysis?
Yeah, you're always welcome to drop me an email or an email. You can reach me at hannah@chainalysis.com. I'm happy to chat all things talent acquisition. And you may get an earful about BrightHire, but that's because I love them. So I would look forward to connecting with anyone and can't wait to see everybody at the Javits Center in a couple weeks.
Yeah. And I mean, based on this conversation, any recruiters that are looking for a new gig, you might be hearing from them based on what I heard today.
No poaching it open. All right. No poaching it open.
Right. Yeah. Not ad open. Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you both for your time. I know how busy you are, and I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm looking forward to your session. And thank you so much for being here.
Likewise. I'm super excited.
Thanks, George.
All right. Thank you. And thanks everyone for watching.